The chamber of the Caliph Dominion throne was carved from living crystal that glowed with a cool azure light that never faded through their long cycles. The queen sat upon her risen dais with a stillness that made her seem carved from the same luminous stone. Her guards stood in disciplined silence against the walls, their chrome armor reflecting the soft pulse of the throne's inner veins. Warnings of an approaching conflict weighed heavily in the air. Reports had spoken of a border skirmish with a human fleet, and distrust between the two peoples simmered like a dormant volcano. The queen's name was Ryla, and she was known for the calm that steadied her people. Yet, on this day that calm cracked, the doors to the throne chamber parted with a whisper. A human guard entered. He walked with measured steps, wearing a simple dark uniform, his posture straight but unthreatening. His role was part of a diplomatic exchange that placed one human soldier in the palace for transparent peacekeeping. It was meant to build trust. Ryla froze. The guards nearest her tensed, interpreting the sudden shift in their ruler. Her eyes did not move from the human. Her heartbeat faltered. For a moment her mind abandoned the present. He looked like him. He looked like her lost partner. Ryla's people bonded for life. Her partner had been a brilliant strategist named Daron, who vanished during a failed expedition. Years before, his ship had never returned. No signal had surfaced. Her heart had learned to live with the silent ache. She now saw his face reflected in the human who approached her. The human stopped at the respectful distance the Caliph protocol required. He bowed his head slightly and spoke. His name was Eli. His voice was steady and low. He carried no weapon. Ryla forced her posture into stillness, but her pulse was a storm beneath her calm exterior. Eli raised his eyes. They were shaped like Daran's. They held the same shade, the same weight. She almost rose from her throne by instinct. The guards watched her with concealed worry. No one had ever seen her lose the perfect composure expected of her. He pressed her hands against the arms of her throne to anchor herself. Eli spoke again with a respectful restraint human diplomats had trained into him. He explained that he had been assigned to the Queen's Guard rotation for the day. His words were simple and professional, but she heard Daron's voice in every syllable. Ryla gave no reply for several breaths. Then she asked him his name. When Eli spoke it, she closed her eyes for a heartbeat. The similarity of sound was another strike to her chest. She dismissed the chamber attendants to regain control. Only her elite Caliph guards and Eli remained. Eli stood aware of the strange tension. He was trained to read body language. Something about the queen's reaction unsettled him, but he held his discipline. Hila descended from her throne slowly. Her movements flowed like ripples over water. Guards shifted subtly, but did not block her. She approached Eli until she stood a meter away from him. She looked at his face with a gaze that felt like both grief and longing contained behind many layers. She asked quietly who his ancestors were. Eli answered with honesty and no embellishment. He explained that his lineage came from a coastal human colony known for explorers. Something in that answer struck another chord. Her partner had loved exploration. She asked about his training. He answered. She listened to every detail, as though trying to reconcile her memory with reality. Eli finally gathered the courage to ask her a question. He wanted to know if he had done something wrong. Upon entering, Ryla's breath tightened. She told him. He reminded her of someone. Eli waited respectfully. He offered no further detail. Later that evening, during the diplomatic dinner, the queen remained uncharacteristically silent. Her advisors carried most of the discussion. Eli stood behind her as assigned. More than once she felt his presence behind her and had to steady herself. After the dinner, she retired early, but she did not sleep. Her thoughts drifted in cycles. She replayed her partner's smile as it had been years before. She replayed the moment he had told her he would return. She replayed the hollow years that followed. Morning arrived with faint lavender light filtering through the crystalline window. Ryla prepared for the scheduled meeting with the human envoy. Eli was again assigned to her side. Her chief advisor questioned the decision, sensing the effect he had on her, but she insisted. She wanted answers, even if she feared them. During the walk through the palace corridors, she asked Eli more about his upbringing. Eli answered with patience. He spoke of his early training. He spoke of the first time he saw a Caliph vessel. He spoke of why he volunteered to serve in the diplomatic exchange. He believed peace between their peoples could prevent a larger conflict. Rilla listened closely. His conviction reminded her of Darren even more. At the negotiation hall, a sudden alarm cut through their path. A breach had been detected. Ryla's guards reacted instantly, stepped forward without hesitation in front of the queen. The gesture was instinctive, protective, exactly as Darren had once done. Ceiling crackled open from an unauthorized teleport breach. A group of masked raiders materialized in a flash of red light, their weapons drawn. There, aim set upon the queen. Ryla prepared to defend herself. Her guards charged. Eli moved faster than she expected. His training took over. He intercepted the first attacker with a forceful takedown. He shielded the queen with his body. She felt another shock of recognition. Darren had once shielded her in exactly the same way during a border ambush. A second raider lunged. Eli grabbed the queen's arm and pulled her out of the direct line of fire. Her guards overwhelmed the raiders, but the sight of Eli standing protectively in front of her forced another wave of memories upon her. When the threat ended, her chief guard insisted they escort her away. I stood ready. She placed her hand lightly on his arm. It was the first time she had touched him. Her voice softened. She thanked him. Eli bowed his head again. He looked confused by the emotion in her eyes. She ordered that he accompany her alone to her private chamber so she could ensure his injuries were minimal. Her guards protested, but she silenced them with a single gesture. They obeyed. In her private chamber, she set aside protocol. She walked around him slowly, noticing every detail that mirrored Darren. The way he breathed, the shape of his stance, the faint scar along his jaw. She finally asked him a question she had held back. She asked him if he had ever heard of a missing Caliph expedition from many years earlier. Eli shook his head. She asked about his earliest memories. He explained what he knew. His childhood years were clear. His training, his recruitment, everything was normal. But curiosity drove her further. She retrieved a small crystalline device from her chamber. It was a genetic resonance scanner used to identify lineage across species. She asked permission to scan him. Eli hesitated only a moment, then agreed with quiet respect. She activated the scanner. The crystal glowed. The chamber hummed. When the results appeared, her breath caught. Eli took a step closer to read the projection. The device revealed something remarkable. There was a faint resonance of Caliph genetic signature, not enough to suggest he was Caliph by birth, but enough to indicate he carried traces linked to a long study mission that once involved deep biological exchange research between humans and Caliph. Lead scientist on that mission had been Darren. Ryla felt her heart twist. The resemblance was not coincidence. Had not returned from that mission. Eli had been born years after. The implications swirled through her mind. She asked Eli if anyone had ever told him about a mentor of his early ancestors. He explained that an old archive from his colony mentioned a visitor long ago, a visitor who taught early explorers, a visitor who vanished one day. The records were vague, but the timeline aligned with when Darren was lost. Ryla sat down slowly. Eli stepped closer with concern. She saw past the mystery. He was not. Darren was human. He had his own life, his own choices. Yet he carried echoes of the partner she had loved, echoes shaped by history, not by fate. She looked at him with new clarity. Eli watched her with gentle worry. She explained everything to him. Her partner, his disappearance, her grief, her shock. When Eli entered the throne hall, Eli listened silently. She finished. He bowed his head. He said he understood. He said he did not know what tied him to that old history, but he respected it deeply. He told her he would serve with honesty, not because he resembled someone from her past, but because he believed peace required sincerity. Rala felt a weight lift. She realized she had tried to resurrect her past in his face, but Eli's presence reminded her of something. Her heart had forgotten hope. Hope did not erase grief. Hope did not rewrite history. Hope simply allowed her to breathe again. Over the following cycles, Ryla and Eli worked together during peace negotiations. He became a trusted guard. He acted with integrity. In every assignment, he brought a calm strength to the palace. Her advisors noticed the subtle shift in her demeanor. Her voice regained its warmth. Her decisions regained their steady brilliance. One evening, Ryla stood upon the high balcony overlooking the crystalline city. Eli approached quietly. As always, he maintained respectful distance. She turned toward him with a peaceful gaze. She told him that he reminded her of why she had once believed in unity between their peoples. She told him he carried the courage she once admired in her partner, not because he looked like him, but because his actions proved the same spirit. Eli nodded with quiet understanding. He told her that he would continue to protect her, not out of obligation, but out of conviction. Looked at him for a long moment. She no longer saw the ghost of her past. She saw the promise of her future. The stars above shimmered, the palace lights glowed. Peace no longer felt like a distant possibility, felt like something that could be shaped, forged, defended. In the quiet of that night, the queen who once froze now stood steady, not because she had forgotten her lost partner, but because she had finally allowed her heart to move forward. Eli stood beside her, not as a reminder of what had been lost, but as a symbol of what humanity and the Caliph Dominion could still become. Their path ahead was uncertain, but it no longer frightened her. She faced the coming cycles with renewed strength. The human guard who carried echoes of a past she cherished, and the promise of a future she chose to build. And for the first time in many years, her heart felt whole.